stretches for Dillon's where he amassed most of his goals this year in the 11-game period a while back. And right now, the ice time in the offensive zone is more in Ottawa's favor. A lot more careful. Early in the game, a couple of breakaways performances, one on the PK, one at 5-on-5. I believe the Ottawa Senators are trying to stretch the zone. And if you are deep.
Okay, now can you see it?
I can see the aerial shot. And oh yeah, your other one is, what is your other one? It's, yes, I can see the food.
All right, we're good now, aren't we?
I hope so.
So do I.
All right, I'll mute me.
All right, let me mute this. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Whoop, there's Bentley. He's saying hello too. Those of you who don't know Bentley, Bentley is my dachshund who is blind and is barking at somebody at the front door. I am going solo today, so please be patient with me as I go through the cooking demo. And you'll all have to imagine what I look like. I'll show myself at the end. And maybe you'll be lucky enough to see Bentley too. So today we are going to make two things. There's no cooking involved. It's going to be, we're going to make a chickpea tuna salad, no tuna involved, and an Israeli salad. Something when we're feeling maybe a little way down, need something a little light to help bring some spring back in our step, especially here in the cold Northeast, or for those who might be down in Texas where it's been pretty cold too. These recipes came about because I was trying to figure out if there was a way that I could make something kosher in my kitchen, which is very, very difficult to do because even though I'm vegetarian, I do mix dairy and I do make some meat things for my dog. I'm a good dog mom. And so that makes a lot of things in my kitchen non-kosher. Plus, I'm in a rental, and so I have no idea if meat has been cooked in my oven. And once meat has been cooked in my oven is no longer kosher. So even if I use something that is kosher with the kosher symbols, you have the like the U symbol, and there are a bunch of different symbols. You can look up the different kosher symbols. Even though if I use them and they're kosher to begin with, if I put them in a bowl that's been used for meat, or cut them with something that's been used for meat, then it's no longer kosher. So these recipes could be kosher if they were used in items that did not have any non-kosher items in there previously. So if they're new, and I'm guessing you could probably use paper. Someone who knows a little bit more about that could type that in the chat for everyone. That would be great. Could you use paper and plastic utensils that have never seen anything else? That is an answer I do not have. So if someone could help me out on that one, that would be awesome. Some other little bit of information about kosher food and some of the kosher laws. I mean, there are like thousands of kosher laws. We know that they don't do pork. And the seafood, they can only eat fish with fins and scales. They can't do anything like octopus or lobster or shrimp, anything like that. That's off limits. Eggs need to be checked for blood spots before using. They can't be used if there are blood spots. And for example, someone who's really following strict kosher laws could not eat eggs that were boiled in a pot that had been used for non-kosher items. Dairy products must come from cows or goats that were inspected by rabbis. And they can't have dairy within, can't eat any dairy products with chicken or meat of any kind. One must wait 6 hours between eating foods in these groups, which is a funny story about that is one of my coworkers, I also work at the Veterans Administration Hospital here in Manhattan. One of my coworkers is kosher, and she told me that a lot of times they'll have dessert first because they can't have the dairy after they eat the meat. So they'll have their ice cream before dinner. And like I said, different people follow different rules when it comes to kosher, depending on how strict they are. But in very strict, they have separate pots and pans, they have separate utensils, they have to use separate cooking areas. And then things like even all fruits and vegetables must be washed and checked for bugs in order to be kosher. And herbs and things like that can only be cut using a kosher knife. So I have a feeling a lot of things in my kitchen aren't kosher. Now, another type of religion that has some laws when it revolves around food is halal. Now, halal is food that is allowed to be eaten. This is in the Muslim faith, and haram food isn't allowed to be eaten. So you have to look for their specific Quran symbol to guarantee that there isn't any haram ingredients in there. Certain enzymes and lipases can make packaged foods haram, which means not able to eat. And halal meat needs to be slaughtered properly in a humane way. And that meat that isn't slaughtered according to Muslim laws is haram and cannot be eaten. Pork and bacon is also haram. And alcohol is considered haram even for cooking. So if you think about it, they can't even have, we all know that alcohol generally burns off or evaporates when you're cooking, but think about your natural extracts. A lot of your natural extracts, vanilla, almond, they all come in an alcohol base. So technically they can't even have cookies or desserts that are made with natural vanilla unless it's like a vanilla paste or a natural vanilla bean. And there are some vanilla extracts that are made without alcohol. So those are just some different things to consider. So that's where today's recipes came about, was being able to create things that if you had the appropriate kosher utensils, things that weren't used on non-kosher items before, that you could make these dishes. So I didn't do a whole bunch of prepping for this because I didn't think it would take too long to just make all together. So the first thing we're going to make is the chickpea tuna salad. And with that, you need to use canned chickpeas. 1 second. All right. So one of the things that I did was let me pull it up. So what I got, there we go. Nope, this way. So I got some garbanzo beans, and if you can see very closely, it says no salt added, which is phenomenal because to get beans with no salt added is really hard. And you really want to do that because all of your canned beans tend to have a lot of sodium in them. So I'm getting something out of my freezer to show you too. So the canned beans was a 15.5 ounce can, but when I took the liquid out, it became 8.5 ounces. So it was, I don't know, maybe 60%. So 40% was liquid and 60% were the actual beans. Now you're probably wondering, why on earth is she going through that? Well, the reason being, I get dried chickpeas, dried black beans, a whole bunch of beans I just get dried, and I reconstitute them and cook them myself. And then what I do is I take them and voila, it's like magic. It just pops up. I put them in the freezer. So I would need to know that if I was just taking out my frozen peas, I don't have a 15.5 ounce can. And that's going to, if I use 15.5 ounces of these beans that I did myself, that would be too much. So I know that I need 8.5 ounces. Now you can measure that out, figure it out yourself, look on the interwebs, it's all over the place. So that being said, for the chickpea tuna salad, we've got the chickpeas, which are over here. We've got this very, very bright 6 tablespoons of non-fat Greek yogurt. We are going to get some fresh lemon juice. You can also use bottled lemon juice if that's what you have. We've got the tahini, or you can use something like sunflower butter. The only salt that's going to be in here is the celery salt. The curry powder, for those of you who got the newsletter this morning, had a curry powder recipe. Me being a little Miss Frugal, and I hardly use curry powder. I'm like, I'm not going to pay $4 for a jar of curry powder. I'm like, I've got an entire wall of spices in my apartment. I'm going to use something there. So all curry powder is a mix of spices. So when the Brits went to India way back when, they really liked the flavor profile of a lot of the foods. And so then they called it curry powder because that was the spices that were in these curries, where curries really are a dish that's a gravy or a sauce that's in there. So curry powders, if you go to the store, you can see a lot of varieties of different curry powders. If you go to different restaurants, you have the Indian curry powders, things like garam masala, and then you can go to Japanese restaurants, you can go to Thai restaurants. There are all these different types of curries, and you can figure out what flavor profile you like. So this is my homemade curry powder. You can see the recipe in today's newsletter. If you don't have it, shoot me an email at Karen@epicurenutrition.net, and I'll get back to you with that recipe. We have some nutritional yeast. We're going to have the carrots, the celery. We're going to go through some chopping. The tomato is and the cucumber is for the Israeli salad we're doing later, as well as we're going to use some lemon juice. We've got the onions, which we're using in both the Israeli salad and the chickpea tuna salad. I've got some cilantro that's going to magically appear in a moment. Ta-da! That we're going to chop up for the Israeli salad. And then I have these seaweed sheets that are pretty big seaweed sheets. These are ones that you would use. They're roasted seaweed sushi nori. So you would use these if you were making sushi, that you would roll them up. If you go to the store, you'll also see that they have the little packets of seaweed. You can use that. We're using that in the tuna salad to give it a little bit of a fishy taste without it being fish. All right, so I went through all the ingredients. We're going to chop up some raisins and cashews to put in there as well. So let's get started on doing some chopping and dicing to get this ready. All right. I'm going to pull a bunch of this aside. Oops. Here. All right. So front and center. There we go. We have our chickpeas, and I'm going to use this old school potato masher to just mash these up a little bit. Oops. We can just throw those back in there. If you don't have an old school potato masher, you can just use a fork. You could also use, I have something. This is my little presser to use for coffee or espresso. You could use something like that to mash it up. And you want to leave some bigger pieces in there because I like that for the texture. Oops, that was a little loud, my apologies. So whichever you want to use. I'm just going to mash these up. All right. Off a little bit. All right, So then we're just gonna set this aside. There's Bentley again. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make our dressing. We have our 6 tablespoons of Greek yogurt. I prefer to use this over sour cream because it has more protein in it, which is helpful for people. We have our lemon, which we need to add to that. So if you have a lemon, what you can do is roll it like this, and it helps loosen up the juice inside a little bit. You can also pop it in the microwave for a little bit. Just slice it. I have this nifty juicer. This is also great for squeezing limes for margaritas. It keeps most of the seeds out. Do a second one. And sometimes I just turn it around to try to get as much juice as I can. All right, so we've got the lemon juice in there. We are going to add the curry powder, the celery salt, the nutritional yeast, and the tahini. Gotta get out the magic spatula. Get that out. And then we're just going to mix it together until it's well combined. There we go. Now we can set that aside. We need to finish chopping up our celery. I wanted to go through some chopping skills. Dicing. Now, dicing is more uniform, where chopping, it can be a little less uniform. You want to remember that you want to use your, oh, looks like we lost the video here. Did we lose the video? We lost the one video. Let's try to find that again. Where did that go?
I can see both of your screens, but not you.
And there we go. We've got the second spot like that. All right, so I'm going to use the bear claw, and I'm going to use the tunnel to get that. And I'm going to tunnel again. And remember, the most dangerous knife in your kitchen is a dull knife. Make sure you get your knives sharpened regularly, or sharpen them yourself if you're oh so talented. I did more of them at once, and then I can do things like a little bit of a rocking motion to make sure that I'm getting all the pieces. This is more of a rough chop than a dice, because when I do it, by no means are these ever all the same size. I would not survive in Gordon Ramsay's kitchen. All right. So we've got the rest of the celery to add to our little celery bowl. And then we are going to chop up our onion. I actually have a smart cutting board here. Whoops, found some chickpeas that ran away. What's nice about this cutting board is that it bends, so it makes pouring into things a little bit easier. So the recipe calls for about a quarter of a medium red onion diced. That's about a quarter. I'm just going to cut this off. And I'm just going to go along the side, not the way you would normally go, or the way that I used to go. So I'm going to go across the side. Add more or less to your taste. And then now that I have these, I can just easily dice them up, or my rough chop, using my bear claw. And if I want them a little bit thinner, I can just go across. All right. So we have our onions. And what I'm going to start doing is adding some of it to the chickpea mix because I'm running out of room in my very large studio apartment kitchen here in Manhattan. So I'm adding the onions. I'm going to add the celery just to get those out of the way. And move that to the side. And I have some carrots chopped up, but I'm going to chop up some additional carrots. Ooh, those onions are getting to my eyes. So what I'll do is I'll start with these carrots. Once again, tunnel, cut them in half, get a flat side because it's safe for cutting. These are just little bits and pieces of carrots that I have left over. They had gotten a little limp, so what I did, this carrot so cute, purple one. They had gotten a little limp, so what I did was I put them in ice water in the fridge for a couple of days, and as you can hear with the chopping, they got crunchy again, so they were great to use. All this, what happens when these get limp is just that the cells are void of water. So if you replenish the water in the cells by soaking them in cold water, especially in the fridge overnight, you'll see that they bounce back to life and they have a great crunch to them again. You can do that with celery, you can do that with carrots, with radishes, with lettuce, with kale, any of those items that have lost their water due to being around a little bit too long. So we're going to put the rest of the carrots in there. And then we need to do a rough chop on the cashews and the raisins. Now you can eliminate these if you don't like them. I am using unsalted raw cashews. You can use roasted cashews. I would still continue with the unsalted. The raisins are nice to use because they add a little bit of a natural sweetness to them. So it's no added sugar. I'm just going to continue to chop these. So you're seeing pretty much a recipe done from beginning to end with very little prep work. This just adds another little bit of a crunch, and as the cashews just have this creaminess to them, which is a really nice addition to the dish. All right, so we got those roughly chopped. We're going to bring this back up, add that to it. So let's see, what have we got? We've got the items in there. We're going to add a little bit of pepper, my massive pepper grinder. For those of you who have been with me since the That's Vegetarian days, you'll remember this monster of a pepper grinder, seriously about 3 feet tall. I am going to now add the yogurt mixture. And I'm going to combine. And even if you look at it, because you're adding similar ingredients to what you would to a tuna salad, it looks very similar. Maybe not the raisins to a tuna salad. Now with the seaweed sheets, optional if you want to add it or not, I just crumble them on the top. You can use 1 or 2 to your tasting. Up to you if you want to use seasoned or unseasoned. I like the unseasoned a little bit better because this is a really low sodium food option. Now that it's done, a couple of different ways that you could serve this. There we go, all done. Looks creamy. You can add more yogurt if you want. When I first started playing with it, it was only 3 tablespoons of yogurt. And I was like, that just wasn't enough. So what you can do is you can do something like with romaine lettuce. What's great about romaine lettuce is it makes great lettuce wraps. You can just take it and scoop it inside. And if you're staying away from bread, this would be a great way to make a little bit of a lettuce wrap with this. And you can just eat it as so. Another option of what you could do is get yourself a lovely pita bread. These are made with some ancient grains, nice and fresh. And you can just take it. You can add some lettuce to it if you want, some tomato. You can just put this in there. And then that makes a lovely little sandwich. And one of the things that we realized really helped with this is also using an avocado. So all I'm doing is cutting the avocado in half, twisting it, getting the top. I'll just do some slices, and then I'll go the opposite direction, being very careful to just hit the bottom of the skin. And then I can take a little spoonful and put it on my chickpea tuna salad. All right. Whew, that takes care of that recipe. Now let's move on to have an accompanying Israeli salad to go with it. Washing off my cutting board. So with this, I already started some prepping on it. We have some tomatoes here that have already been cut. I cut the tomato in 1/8. I'll show you how to do that. You can cut it into 16ths or smaller if you want. Tunnel, once again, look at that knife, super sharp, just went through it. Flat side, gonna cut. Oops. You can also use like cherry tomatoes, grape tomatoes. You can cut these smaller if you want in pieces. They'd probably be a little bit more bite size if you cut them in half. So we're going to add the rest of the tomatoes there. We have a cucumber, optional to you if you want to peel the cucumber or not. I tend to like to keep the skin. Up to you if you want to keep the seeds or not. You can also use something like an English cucumber, which has less seeds. What you want to do is have equal ratio of cucumber to tomato. And we're just going to cut those. And once again, you notice bare claw in pieces and doing a little bit of a rocking motion with the knife. And then I can just pick that up and slide it in. You can also do some, looking for my peeler if I can find it quickly. You can also do some with skin and some without. Or you can make a design. Something like that. And I'm going to cut it in half. And so in the recipe card, I put 1 to 2 cucumbers, depending on the size of your cucumbers and the size of your tomatoes, just so you can make sure you can get that equal ratio. Oops. And I showed you how to cut the onion when we did the original one. So what I have here is I have about half an onion, about a half a cup. And what I did was I soaked them in ice water for about 30 minutes prior to cooking it. So it still keeps the flavor of the red onion, but it has a little bit less of the pungency. So it's nice to have in there. And the other thing we want to add is some chopped cilantro. So I just took some cilantro. I use the stems. That's up to you whether you want to rip the cilantro off the stems or not. I just use it to add flavor. I'm just going to bunch it up. And I'm just going to go through and use the bear claw, rocking motion. being cautious. Oops, I accidentally turned my tea kettle on. Just gonna turn it a little bit, bunch it up again to kind of get it a little bit more diced. There we go, some cilantro. You might be one of those people who cilantro, what does the cilantro do? It tastes like soap. And this bowl looks like it's gotten a little bit small. Give me 1 second. Just gonna grab another bowl so we can actually mix it. All the colors in there. We're gonna put, so there we go. We've got all that finely chopped. And what we're gonna do is before we add the feta, we wanna get the dressing together. Now in the dressing, I am just going to use, you can use like a mason jar, or if you have some leftover bottles, you can use that. I'm just going to use a measuring cup. And what we're going to do is put in 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. 1, 2, 3. And I want to welcome everybody on YouTube as well as those who are here on Zoom. Now you want to have an oil, in addition to an oil, and you want to have some sort of acid. So the acid we're going to use is a lemon. You can also use something like vinegar, that's fine. And I'm going to use my nifty citrus press. Now with this, you want to use about a 1/4 cup of freshly squeezed lemon juice, lime juice, and that comes out to be about 1 to 2 lemons. You can be precise about it or just estimate it. You can also use something like this, very old school, where it has the little grates to help catch the pits and it sits nicely on top. So I've got all the little toys here. So we've got our lemon juice. To that, we want to add about 2 cloves of garlic, which I did not prep at all. And I have some lovely fresh garlic from when I did the farm share. So we'll just quickly do some mincing of some garlic. We got to put this to the side for a minute. And we're still using the same. Now what I'd like to do, cilantro is part of this recipe, so not a big deal. I take my chef knife and I just press down. And what that does is that crushes the skin on the garlic, which makes it easy to peel off. Sort of easy, right? Now what you can do is you can use a garlic press, or just chopping it is pretty easy to do. Once again, you want to use your bear claw to get some thin strips going that way. We'll do the same thing on this one. And then we'll just take it and bear claw it this way, using our knuckles as a way to guide our knife and keep our fingertips safe. If you want them chopped up smaller, you can just go through it and hold your knife. You keep the blade of the knife down in the front and you just use a rocking, swinging motion to go across to get all the other little bits and pieces. And you can get it as fine as you want. And if you don't want these big of chunks, just use yourself a good old garlic press. So I'm now going to add that to the dressing. We're going to put a little bit of salt in there. I saved these old salt grinders that I got from Trader Joe's, and as you can see, I've had a variety of different salts in there. It's a great way to reduce, reuse, recycle. So I'm just going to put a pinch of some kosher salt in there, and then a little bit of ground pepper, getting my massive pepper grinder out again. Add as much black pepper as you like. I like lots of black pepper. All right, we got that. And then we need to whisk it up. You can use a traditional whisk as such. I've got this fancy dancy whisk, this one, which I really like a lot. Or you can just use a fork. If you're using a mason jar, then you can just shake it up. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the feta cheese on the top. I'm going to pour the dressing on the top. And then I have these wonderful wood salad tongs, and I'm just going to toss it. And there you have a very easy Mediterranean salad. This is something that could potentially be kosher for somebody that you might be having over. It would definitely fall into the halal category. And this completes this week's cooking demo. We got 2 recipes done in about 35 minutes with minimal prep. They're low in sodium, which is great for people with diabetes, heart conditions, or kidney issues. And they're great for somebody who's vegetarian. If you have someone who's vegan, you can find something different than the, you can find like a vegan yogurt that you could use instead of the Greek yogurt that I used for the dressing, or a vegetarian sour cream, something like that could work. And no episode is ever complete without me trying it. And don't forget, these recipes are in, where are they? They're in the chat box. So you can just download yourself those recipes. And let's give this a whirl.
Well, hello, hello, hello. I am back. So we're going to give the Mediterranean salad a try. Normally it'd be, that's vegetarian. And it is, that's vegetarian. For those of you who've been around since that's vegetarian days. It turned out really good. It's really nice, really light. It'd be amazing in the summer when you have those really fresh cucumbers and those really fresh tomatoes. Granted, this isn't completely in season, but it's something that is very light and refreshing and a great accompaniment. You can put it on a bed of lettuce, romaine. You can just eat it the way that it is. And it complements, I know, never go from below. It complements something like the tuna salad very well. Let's give this a try. That too is vegetarian and super duper yummy. I want to thank you so much for being a part of this. And I hope you will try these recipes at home. Try to make your own curry powder. If you haven't seen my spice wall, there's my spice wall. So it's no wonder that I had all the spices that I needed. I have things like asafreda, I have caraway seeds, cardamom, coriander, mace, cayenne, celery seeds, garlic powder, onion powder, nutmeg, mustard, mace, mango amchur powder, ginger, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, chipotle pepper, turmeric, of course. These are all the different types of seasonings that would go into something especially Indian. So anyway, my spice wall. Whew, that's it for me. I'm going to take a little bit of a seat here, and I am going to see if anybody has any questions. Opening it up to you. No one? Well, then I just want to say thank you for being a part of this wonderful, wonderful Epicure Nutrition cooking demo. And I hope and look forward to you making this. If you go to YouTube /C/Epicure Nutrition, or just look for Epicure Nutrition,
try these recipes and write your comments underneath them and what you thought about them. And I'd much appreciate that. I want to thank you very much. I'll give it one more moment for any questions.
Where's the recipes? I don't see them.
So the recipes aren't in the chat box. They're on the,
Oops, I'm hearing something. Fran, that's you. Hold on one second. Okay, try it again.
so the recipes aren't in the chat box. We have to go on the Epicure Nutrition website.
Nope, they're in the chat box.
We don't see them.
I don't see it.
Really?
Not back. We don't see them.
Well,
Let me upload-
Colleen's the expert on that and she doesn't see them, so.
All right, let me upload them again.
Share screen. Okay, participants.
All
There
right,
they are.
there
Now
it
they
is.
are.
There it is.
Now
Now,
we see them.
Do you see one of them or two of them?
one, chickpea.
All right,
Like that.
But the download it. You gotta download it yourself.
and then there's the Israeli salad.
Yes.
And by all means, oops, you can buy your own curry powder. You don't have to make your own, it's just on frugal. Trying to figure out the sound.
Nice. Thank you.
You're
You're welcome.
I'll
I'll put the curry powder in there as well.
I think I saved it.
And
And
next month,
Let me reduce the volume on my phone.
Next
Next month,
cooking
cooking
demo
is actually going to be on the
fourth
fourth
Tuesday of
Tuesday
the
of
month,
the month.
because
Because
on the third Tuesday,
No
I'm
way.
going to be in Antarctica.
No fair. No
So-
fair. Take us with you.
It'll be on the fourth Tuesday, the 22nd.
Take us with you.
Let me get the curry powder up there.
No, but wait.
Is that gonna be 2/22/22? Right?
Where'd it
Oh my
go?
gosh, it is 2/22/22.
Ah, here's your
Wow.
mouse.
That's pretty awesome.
Where'd it go?
2222. All right.
I downloaded them, but where'd they go?
I want to
Yeah.
thank everybody for being a part of this.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on 2222, or if you're joining the nutrition webinar, that'll be on February 1st, and we're going to talk a little bit about sports nutrition. And I have my wonderful intern, Simcha, who's going to be helping me with that. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. And
Bye-bye.
bye-bye to my YouTube fans.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I said save.
You gotta save.
Oh, I did.
Shimka, that's our new intern.
I know.
There you go.